Hi guys, and welcome to your final, for the moment, update on Strike Zone Wotan.
For the moment?
Yes, because there's narrative stuff to take place
Okay.
later down the line. But to wrap up the campaign that you have all been bashing away at now for the last few weeks, I'm joined by Carlos from Spain. Hey, Carlos.
Hello.
And Justin's going to help me by pressing a few buttons and bringing up some interesting pictures.
Tech wizardry.
Yes. Right. So, firstly, congratulations to all of you. Over 4,000 participants, over 5,000 battles fought. Woo! It was a doozy. It was an absolute doozy. Let me just very quickly recap what has taken place. So I will borrow that for just 1 second.
There you go.
Okay. So you have all been participating in the Strike Zone Wotan campaign. The campaign itself was fought over 3 phases. So all of your battles were taking place among a slightly larger story arc. Okay, so it all started out with phase 1, and all of you guys really got stuck in and really did go to town on your battles. However, there was a point in phase 2 when the main space station, La Forge, cracked, and the gate started to fire up, and then finally we had the large combined army ship coming through. So I know you're all mad keen to find out how that's going to turn out narratively and how your stories and stuff have been affected. But wait, that happens later. Carlos, we have the faction liaisons at the moment all furiously writing up all of their stories.
Yes, that is actually happening right now. I mean, the faction liaisons are writing. They tend to write in a very fluff-wise tone, but we also ask them to write from the player experience, okay? Yeah. Because some people tend to keep on in character writing fluffy, you know. But apart from that, I need to know exactly the alliances, the operations, the player perspective in a more rational way, to be able to understand what really happened for the players and be able to understand what they had in their minds, because everybody create their own stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But collecting such amount of data takes time. Yeah. And also then considering what we do with this, or what can Corvus Belli really feed from in order to deliver future plans is a big part of the decision chart here in Corvus Belli.
Yeah.
So it's not going to happen from one day to another.
Yeah.
Next month's releases will not be Wotan related.
Yes.
But maybe 2018 big things are Wotan related. That can tell you that.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, this is where your faction liaisons are crucial, because I know many of you guys have had your strategies, your grand plans, your moments of having to get up and dust yourselves off and get stuck back into the fight. Well, that is what the faction liaisons are all putting into a perspective. And remember, each of you factions, all your stories may contradict one another as well, but I'm sure all of that will feed in. So that's all going back at the moment. That will go back into the hands of the writing team, but as well as that, Dickie Bird tells me you guys are firing up meetings to start planning out future things, and a lot of this Wotan stuff is being discussed around the 2018 stuff, Carlos, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it was a coincidence that during these days, these last days of Wotan, were days where big plot things were planned here at Corvus Belli, and well, some happenings at the Wotan event did strangely were going in the same direction, and some plot decisions of the timeline of Infinity were being discussed. Other did not, but at some point it was so interesting to see the events happening in Wotan, and while we are discussing the evolution of the human sphere, you know, big things, and those are not going to happen from one day to another, but hey, maybe we can really pay more attention to Wotan, and also the ITS, and also considering a new approach on certain decisions, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
because makes works for us,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
Makes the player feel more involved, really, and that's something important. And give us names, give us locations, okay? So the Wotan campaign already had a plot that was an evolution from the events that happened on Operation Flamestrike at Flamia Island,
yeah,
2016 event. And now we have Operation Wotan, Strike Zone Wotan, 2017, and drama happen, and
yeah,
spaceships collide and explode, and this faction attacks that other faction, and when considering where is the human sphere going to, or what are the roles of the factions, which faction is rising in a certain political sphere, which faction is falling in disgrace,
yeah,
also in the status quo of the sphere. That is interesting.
yeah.
And Wotan can be, you know, the initial spark of this kind of things happening,
Hmm.
the location to point at, you know, to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned, guys, because as Gutiérrez and the writing team get further on that, we will try and we'll reach out to the guys and bring back and get a kind of like a fluff update. Right. Let me show you a stat. You guys have played from all over the world. Okay, you've been everywhere. And the battle reports have been flooding in. I've got some interesting stats and charts to show you just in a little bit. But first things first, we want to hand out some medals. Okay, so we've crunched the numbers. Okay, and we want to recognize some factions based on some key criteria that we've been watching all along. So the first criteria is the most powerful faction. So this is down to the highest score when everything was all done and dusted and all AI historians and stuff came into place. And I'll get a wee drum roll. And the faction that caught that was Pan-Oceania.
Pano.
Well done, Pano. Carlos, have you anything to say on that?
Well, we can say that this medal goes to, you know, it has no merit, it has no credit because it's the most played faction, it's the massively played faction and stuff like that. Well, you can see that. You can also consider that other faction had a bigger amount of players than Pano, so that is also a credit for this medal. Also, Pano, especially at the end, rise themselves as the saviors of humanity.
Yeah.
And anyway, they fought a lot of battles and they scored a lot of points. So it's still a way to look at the data.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
objectively, with no possibility of discussion, the faction that scored the highest amount of points is Pano.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done, Pano. Okay, so next up, we have the most efficient faction. So this is the most amount of points per battle. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is all down to the efficiency, and lo and behold, congratulations to Toha.
Toha. What we can say about Toha, what we can say about this medal is once again going to the numbers, going to the results. Yes. Precisely, the Toha was the faction with the least amount of players and they played the least amount of battles. So you will say, oh, then it's easy to have a highest percentage.
Yeah.
It's a way to look at the data. Anyway, Toha players are usually veteran players because
Yes.
the Toha rules are, you know, deeper into the rules base of Infinity. Anyway, it's always hard to keep a high percentage, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
And the Toha did it. And in this particular campaign, they played wonderfully. Despite of being the smallest faction, let's say like that, they did have a very active role in the map, in the storytelling. I'm particularly happy about that, Warren.
Yeah.
Warren. Because one of the improvements of Wotan over Flamia was that no faction was left behind. Small factions like Toha and Aleph did have a relevant role in the Wotan campaign. In Flamia, you can see that small factions were a little bit out of the picture.
Yeah.
But here they were very active and they played an important role. So we're happy with that. The new decisions about the structure put them into the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Okay, next up, let's do another one. Okay, So the next category was most dominant faction. So this is the highest amount of campaign points. And the most dominant faction in Strike Zone Wotan was Ariadna. Congratulations, guys, in Ariadna. Carlos, what have you got to say?
What we can say about Ariadna, I was a privileged observer here of the campaign. I had access to all forums. I could check all the chats of people organizing themselves to play. We were also able to look at the amount of players of every faction. What we could see with Ariadna was that they were medium sized, not small, not big, but they were able to be very, very achievers, totally.
Yeah.
When they decide something, when the leaders of the forum pointed at a specific location of the map to attack, they obey immediately, and in 48 hours the location was theirs.
Yeah.
Impressive coordination and leadership on this faction, and they took what they wanted, and sometimes they occupied a spot, and if they did not manage to occupy it during the whole phase, they occupied it for the most length time of the phase.
Yeah.
So they were dominant, and they were very not avoiding the big rivals. At some point, they were directly to panel, and they took a panel location. So they were not choosing the weakest possible rival. They were for the big prize.
Yeah.
So that was very impressive, and they deserve a medal for that.
Yeah, congratulations, Ariadna. Fantastic stuff. Okay, next category, okay? This time we're looking at the most honorable faction. So this is the lowest amount of downgrades in their battle reports, okay? So this is a measure of quality, submitting quality battle reports. And the faction that secured it was Aleph. Congratulations, Aleph. Carlos said there was some really nice stuff from the Aleph guys.
Oh yeah, and apart from that, a medal for honesty, which is essentially what we're giving here, and it's a prize really. I mean, all factions had their usual layer of spam, and the least or the proportionally fewer were the Aleph reports. So we are obviously giving a medal to the honorable players that played an honorable campaign. Okay, we are not going to point at the opposite side of the spectrum. Okay, that would be a little rude.
Well, you know, that's cover up.
The scurvy dogs of the campaign. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're not going to say that. I mean, that won't be. It's much better to incentivize being honorable towards future campaigns.
Let's stay positive, guys. Let's stay positive. Okay, and our final medal, okay, is for the most commended faction. So this is the highest amount of kind of upgraded battle reports. So these are the battle reports that are of the highest good.
So this is quality.
So it's lots of upgrades and stuff like that there. And for quality of battle reports, our final winner was Pano-Siana. Well done, Pano. Congratulations, Pano, and that kind of just seals it there that not only were you most powerful, you weren't actually the largest faction either. And
who was largest?
And it's the Nomads.
Really?
Were the largest by the end of it.
By this, but
all right, just by a little.
It was tight, it was tight, but they weren't the largest faction. But their power came from the fact that their reports were good. You know, they had a good quality built into those reports. So congratulations, everybody! It's been an absolute blast. Carlos,
in my opinion, we should congratulate all factions.
Yes,
because just by looking at the numbers this way, there were no medals for Hack Islam, Nomad, Juchin. They all deserve medals. There are many ways to approach the data, and you really can extract readings from that. We can say that the Nomads did a great job in propaganda, for example.
Yes, they did.
They were like a feast during all the campaign, with a lot of synergies and a lot of communication, not only through the Wotan forums, also on Facebook and stuff. They were really enthusiastic, and they were aiming for the big prize. They were fighting the big dog here in the campaign, which was Pano. Okay, so they were ambitious, and that's something that deserves all respect.
Yes.
For example, we should also mention the super intelligent approach of Hack Islam during the campaign. They get very defensive in the Ilican Fundak, which was their bastion and was totally impossible to even consider conquering.
Yeah.
And from that moment, in a very, very gentle way, in a very no drama in Hack Islam, they were communicating, they were making decisions, no hurries, and when they decided to took other locations, they took over Yuqing. They managed to have a relatively calm campaign.
There was a wonderful serenity from Hack Islam. That group of players played that faction exactly as I would have expected that faction to conduct itself.
They dropped into the true character of the faction.
It was exceptional, and the way they organized themselves was exceptional as well. And then let's talk about Yujing.
Delivering quality reports, hitting very high numbers really all the time. So putting themselves in a privileged situation for seeing all the other factions killing themselves like children,
Yeah. and then of course there's Yujing, who had to pick themselves up and dust themselves down after their supreme leader in the orange t-shirt managed to say to him, "You're not performing well enough!" Slap!
Yeah, but there are a few certain pieces of truth this big that we should say about Yuqing, okay? Yeah. The way the campaign was executed was not very Yuqing friendly, I must say that. In fact, Yuqing was the only faction who had to defend 2 locations with just a 5-point advantage in phase 2, right when the intensity of the battles and the amount of players already involved in the campaign went down. So Yuqing had to face the most challenging, the biggest challenge of the campaign by themselves in the worst possible moment.
Yeah.
So, as I say, it's like having the best commanders in the worst possible situation, because the guys who stick with Yuqing in the ugliest moments, in the darkest moments of the faction, deserves a lot of credit, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Anyway, congratulations to all of you. It has been an absolute blast watching you guys once again being effectively dropped into the middle of nowhere, Predator style, expected to organize yourselves, expected to make strategic decisions, and then just go and run with it. It's always a thing watching you guys come out the other side of that. Right.
Yeah, I would like to include that because of what you were saying, Warren. Both Ariadna and Hack Islam, in my opinion, especially, they did assemble a very well-structured chain of command during the campaign, or very efficient chain of command. They knew who was the leader, and they have quorum in the decisions and perform wonderfully.
Okay, guys, let me run you through a few final charts just before we go. Okay, so this is the phase 3 charts, and we're starting to notice some really interesting things in the final phase of the campaign. If you're interested in the charts, myself and Carlos sat through another video update. If you scroll back a little bit, you'll find it where we're going through the charts. And I'll point out some of the distinctive changes in what starts to happen towards the tail end of a campaign. But kicking off with Beijing, we start with this chart. Now, what I can say about the AI historian is, as has happened in previous campaigns, there has only ever been one result that has ever changed as a result of the AI historian. So a lot of people worry about the spam reports and things like that. The system has it covered. You don't need to panic about that. And the vast majority of people are putting in their great, cool reports. So the AI historian, all it is doing is making an assessment of, based on the balance of probability, did this battle actually take place? Or was somebody just plugging in results to just try and affect things?
X played Y, X won.
Yeah. So it's all about trying to work out on the balance of probability, did the battle really take place? And once again, on the balance of probability, yes, they certainly did. So you're not going to see a change. But I will take you through it anyway because there's some slight changes, but nothing major or significant.
Okay, so here's the first one.
So here we have the points scored over time in the Beijing orbital consulate. And
That is
in this
phase
one,
3, really.
yeah, this is in phase 3. So what happened is probably worth stating as well. So in phase 3, what basically there was a simulation of the fight moving from deck to deck.
Right.
So some of the locations closed and reopened, and what that was doing was showing it was a deck by deck fighting on the ship.
Yeah, so the tactical objectives were shifting within the ship.
Yeah, so basically it was a form of reset. What had happened in phase 2 still mattered, but whenever you moved into a fresh location of the ship, you were effectively starting again.
You
So
were
it's
after a
a
different
tough
objective
one for all factions to have to. You've built up all that momentum in a phase, and then if a phase locks where you've built momentum,
Yeah, or you've just lost a bit.
what you then have to do is you then have to get into your briefing rooms and start reorganizing everybody to shift your momentum to another new phase. But every phase shift causes a little bit of disarray within an unorganized briefing room. So that's where you see some factions getting on it straight off the bat. So let's have a look at the results. So here with Nomads reacted a little bit slower than Yujing, but went very, very powerful into it. But let's see how the AI historians saw it. Not much difference. You know, in fact, if anything, the Nomads' reaction was a little bit earlier on. But once again, look at the quality of the reports. You know, they were scoring real points the entire time. Now, let me show you another graph. And this one's interesting because if you compare this to the last video, you will notice the beginnings of an increase in the 200-point values.
Well, that looks to be about, what, a quarter of its 200
Yeah,
points?
so what's happening now is as we start to get into the tight end of the campaign, people are maybe reducing point sizes a little bit to try and get some more battles in and try and see if they can get more games in before the entire thing finishes. Okay, moving on, we have our next theater, and that's the Durrani Board Corvette. Okay.
Wow.
Now, according to the standard points scored over time, Toha went in there and just went for
Dominated
it.
it.
Totally went for it.
Well, it was not one of the most active theaters during the campaign, really. I mean, when they remember that in phase 3, when the Toha tiny ship appeared, also the Raxora ship entered into the frame. So everybody was looking at the evil combined army ship.
Go for the big one! Let's go for the big one!
Of course.
The AI historian saw it basically no differently. A really lovely point scoring exercise for Toha there. You can
Bigger
see
battles here.
Yes, but what have we been saying? Toha is typically made up of the veteran players.
Yeah.
And the veteran players
Bigger games, more comfortable,
are able to comfortably take on the bigger games. So just look at that that stat of the 400-point game starting to slip through. That's your big narrative, fluffy games that the veteran players are pulling off against one another. So a fascinating stat there. Okay, moving on to the next theater. We have the Exo Affairs Department. Now, this one is quite fiercely fought between Ariadna, the darker of the blue, and Pan-Oceania, the lighter of the blue. Now, you can see, now this is before the results are adjusted, that Ariadna took off and kept quite a lead over a pretty slow starting Pano, and then Pano really started to push towards the end. But let's see how the AI historians saw it. Now, isn't that quite interesting that the end result, Pano, once again, down to the quality of those reports, was able to pull out a more significant lead. It didn't change the result, but it secured the result a lot more for them because more effort and more quality was considered within the reports themselves.
What about point-sized battles for this one?
This is interesting. Here you're starting to see the when it's fiercely contested,
big wedges of smaller games.
The smaller games start to rack up as people start to try and get a few more games in. And to be fair, the whole purpose of these campaigns is for you guys to be playing games. We have points value starting from 150 points because we want you to be playing small games, big games. Get stuck in and enjoy yourselves. The number of games doesn't matter because at the end you still have to battle report them, you still have to show the evidence, and other people still have to like it. So it's small games is just as hard to do as the big games. Right, moving on. Our next one is the Illic. This is the icicle, the Alfundak. And here you can see Haqqislam determined they were not going to lose this. They weren't. But let's have a quick look at it after the historians got in and assessed the reports.
Still dominating.
Yep. As you can see,
Yujing made a stab at it at the start.
Yujing were there. They were there, but there came a point when they maybe realized or they've moved their resources and assets elsewhere.
So proud of the Yujing right now. I mean, they went for a big dog to mess with, and for a few moments they had it.
Yeah. So looking at that, it's all 200, 300 points. That is two factions that are going at it and are going at it in a fairly regimented kind of a style. Okay, next up we have the Indra 3 Mobase. This is the Echo module. Okay.
So this is Aleph?
This is Aleph. And Aleph were determined on this one. Another one of those.
Well, I think that there was some kind of alliance or pact of non-aggression between Aleph and Ariadna, since Ariadna took out the Echo module in phase 2. So at some point they were negotiating through the social media in terms of finding pacts of non-aggression. So Aleph could retain their location for themselves.
But if you have a look at it, look at Toha.
Yeah, they came in strong. What was the start of this?
Sorry?
Go back to the unmodified one. I want to see this for a second.
Let me just take you back. So
at the very start, it looks like Aleph is just dominating all the way through.
Well, Aleph had a bit of a head start. Toha went straight in and immediately captured it, okay? But then Aleph kicked in after that. But you can see there, once all the points were adjusted, Toha held it for a little bit longer than what you might expect. In terms of the game types, you can start to see a big proportion of 150-point games there. So it's something that we hadn't seen in a campaign until this point was that level of the smaller games.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have the TSD module on Indra 3. Ariadna just went for that.
Yeah.
You couldn't mess with Ariadna in this campaign, really. It was a big dog, but which was not on Flamia, and Flamia Ariadna was not one of the big factions. They have earned their ground as a major player here in Wotan, really.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at how the historians saw it.
Yeah. Who made this last-minute major grab for it?
That looks like Aleph. At the very end, coming in with
maybe trying for a cheeky steal
with a push. I think by that stage it was probably a bit too late, but something somewhere broke down. Hopefully the narrative around that particular statistic will come back in the faction liaison reports, and we'll see what happened within the Aleph faction that caused that. An interesting split here in terms of the points played. Big push of 200-point games coming in there.
So a fair wedge of the 150 points.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, just two more to go. Okay, so here we have Raxora. Now this was the big ship that came in, and as you can see, the combined army were there and pushed.
Fighting all the way, yeah.
Yeah, let's see how the historians saw it. And as you can see, the quality of the Pan-Oceania reports, again, really coming into play. So it's, I can't overstate enough, it's worth putting in the quality into your battle reports.
Well, I will say, looking at this, everybody was having a go at the start of this one.
Oh, yes.
They came in and everybody just started throwing some
resources. No one could
in
resist.
there.
I mean, the combined army entered with their super huge spaceship, and it was such an important menace in the fluff to human sphere. They were trying to get through the gate to the Svaralheim system. So, I mean, everybody feel the drama and wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, it's a big moment, that.
Yeah.
And everybody wants the shiny big ship.
Yeah.
Okay, just to show you on this one, okay, all 300-point battles there.
Yeah,
it's there's that ship was fought flipping properly. There was no mucking around from that ship. People were going in there, and they were making sure that they were going in with big. There was a big proportion of ITS games and stuff like that taking place in there. Okay, last one then. This was the Wotan commercial legation. Okay, just look at that. So Nomads kick off, going well. Then a bit of a surprise attack coming in from Ariadna.
Yeah, and then just divert all the resources in.
It looks like the Nomads woke up. However, let's see how the AI historians saw it. So it
took them a little longer to wake up.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Ariadna wanted a Nomad piece, and they got it. I mean,
they did, boy. And look at the response of Nomads. Almost immediate. But it's still fairly close. It's only towards the end that Ariadna just ran out of time and maybe ran out of a bit of steam in order to take it.
Well, perhaps they had to go and defend elsewhere.
Yep. Finally, that's your breakdown for that one, so you can see your makeup of 300, 200, and 150-point games. And once again, a nice big chunk of 400-point games in there.
Yeah.
Right. We are done.
Yep.
Carlos, we will leave the narrative in you guys' capable hands. As things start to develop, please do get back to us, and we'll let everybody know. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys, watching you guys fight it out.
Warren, I may have to go to your studios next year in order to communicate huge things that did have their first seed, their first start here at Wotan, really.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to that. Okay, Carlos, it's always a blast doing these things with you, mate. Thank you for joining us all the way over in Spain. And guys, thank you for watching. It's been a blast. We will keep you updated on where it all goes from here.